Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we ruin someone's marriage to save the world, because this week we watched The Middleman.
Written by John Shaban.
Directed by Guy Ferland.
And aired on August 12th, 2011.
Who else should be back to grace our screens but Guy Ferland?
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
And John Shaban. Didn't John Shaban write one of the previous episodes as well?
I don't know. He doesn't have a page on Wikipedia, so I can't even check.
He did. I just checked on the TARDIS wiki. He wrote Escape to L.A. As well.
He wrote the one that introduced L.A. to the Doctor Who-niverse. Wow, I can't believe I just said that.
I can't believe more people don't.
Just end the podcast now. Just end me.
I actually like that. You know, I'm pretty averse to the term Whovians and really just anything in that category. But yeah, I like that. I don't know. Do people actually say that? Is that?
I think I've heard people say Who-niverse, but nobody ever says Doctor Who-niverse, which just sounds better.
Yeah, you're right. It does sound better.
I'm not going to be saying that on a regular basis on the podcast. I'm going to put my foot down on that right now. But if you want to say it, Keon, you can go right ahead. I won't stop you.
Yeah, I'll try to remember, but I probably won't.
That should be the tagline on the podcast.
Yeah, this podcast is kind of just like its own, like, pocket universe, its own bubble, cordoned off from the rest of life and the rest of just the world.
I mean, I do feel like I only remember certain things while I'm recording these podcasts. Then they just fly from my memory. Mostly things regarding previous seasons of Doctor Who that, like in my regular life, I seem to be impossible to remember, I guess. Incapable of remembering.
Yeah, I have the same thing. It's like when we're recording, you're sort of in that zone where you are part of that continuum or whatever. And then when you're not recording, you're just not. You're in a totally different headspace, but whatever.
Yeah, well, you know, speaking of headspace... No, that's a terrible segue. Well, speaking of headspace, we meet the COO of FICOR this week, Stuart Owens, who I guess just doesn't appear for the rest of the season. Probably one, because Ernie Hudson's really expensive to pay for your TV show, and two, because they just didn't know what to do with his character after this.
Yeah, I thought for sure that like those cops who came to take him away were going to be, you know, FICOR agents or something who had him monitored, and they realized that he revealed what he revealed to Jack, and they were gonna like, you know, come take him away for good. But I guess not. I guess his wife just did call the cops, even though like cheating isn't technically a crime.
I thought they called the cops on Jack. Wait, were you interpreting them as calling the cops on her husband?
He said like, looks like my wife called the authorities.
But I thought he meant that he called them on Jack, and that's why Jack vanishes, because I thought Stuart was saying this conversation is over because the cops are here to arrest you, and that she called them on Jack because Jack started the conversation by saying, "We kidnapped her." As in your secretary.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Yeah, that's true. He does kind of just end in like a really funny way then, where he's just like, his last thing to do on screen is just look back and go like, what? Like, where'd he go? He doesn't say that, but yeah.
I like how we've jumped forward 35 minutes in the plot of this episode.
Well, to dial it back here, to really get ourselves in the headspace of the beginning of the episode and jump into the head, you know, operations officer, the chief operations officer, you might say, of FICOR.
Right, the COO. Yes.
We're here in his office, and we're hearing on this news report about yet another sect that Miracle Day is introducing to us, as if there weren't already enough factions.
Right, we now meet the 45 Club. People who basically want to take their own life and have decided the best way, and by best I mean only proper quote-unquote way to do this, is to jump off a building from 45 stories or higher, because that's the height you need to be at such that the impact guarantees you'll have no brain function for the rest of time.
Right, so there's plenty of people now just diving off of skyscrapers. We don't really see this too much in the episode, but I'm guessing it'll come back at some point.
Well, it comes back basically only in this episode's in the first 10 minutes because Stuart calls someone in Shanghai to investigate this plot of land that FICOR bought, but that there's no record of like what they bought it for. And then he goes to the plot, investigates some things, calls Stuart and is like, I didn't find anything, and then jumps off a building.
Right, which is obviously really suspicious. And what's also kind of, not suspicious, but suspect is that, like, yeah, Torchwood really bringing it back to the early days of Doctor Who when they cast, like, a non-Asian they just cast, like, a white actor as an Asian guy. Because, yeah, this guy's played by Eric Steinberg.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I should have looked him up for Britain's 10 actors, actually.
I'm looking him up now. I'm looking at his IMDb. Maybe he is half Asian because he has played a lot of Asian characters, it looks like. So, yeah, maybe he is half Asian or something like that and half white.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Normally people's Wikipedia pages will include something about actors' parents or their ethnicity, but the Wikipedia page for Eric Steinberg doesn't actually make mention of either of those for Eric, so
yeah,
unclear. Yes,
I mean,
my point.
Yeah, IMDb is just having him. It's not IMDb. IMDb is listing him, I guess, as having acted and played a lot of Asian characters. So, yeah, which he does here. I mean, like we already mentioned, he's playing this guy in Shanghai.
Yeah, I mean, also he's only on screen for maybe 5 minutes.
Not even.
So this is pretty weird. Immediately, I was kind of thinking what Jack, as we find out later on, is thinking, which is this related to Jack being told that FICOR or whoever is responsible for the miracle was looking for, quote, a geography, unquote.
Yeah, and we still don't really know what that means, so they really baited us a bit early with that.
Yeah.
I'm actually not that curious, I guess. I mean, now that we're kind of talking about it, I'm like, yeah, what does that mean? But while I was watching the episode, like, this episode gives you way more to be concerned about than what that line meant. As we're about to get into, because the next scene that we see is Rex talking into the camera as he was last episode and vowing to reveal what is being done here, which, as a reminder, is incineration and death.
As a reminder, thank you. Thank you for reminding us.
But according to Colin and Ralph, death is legal because it's been officially sanctioned. Really?
Whoa. Don't lump my boy Ralph in here with Carl. Don't lump my boy Ralph in, because Ralph's like, that's not how it works.
Well, Colin just sort of brushes him off. I guess that comes back to bite him, because, you know, you can't really brush off a bullet wound. Yeah. That was bad.
Look, Carl is clearly cracking under pressure,
Yeah,
okay? Carl is just making up nonsense to try and explain his actions, and everyone, and by everyone I mean specifically Ralph, is just like, that's not how this works.
Yeah, was it Carl or was it Colin? It was Colin, yeah, it was sorry. Colin. Yeah.
Colin, sorry.
Yeah, and I only mentioned that line because, like, it was just funny where he goes like, you know what? Death is legal now. Like, immediately after being like, there's no death anymore. Like, no one dies. We can't kill. Really just shifting the narrative here.
You're really, like, skipping over his full argument for the conclusion, you know, because his argument is more of a, like, well, these modules were built by the government, and the government was going to give us the order to turn them on to burn these people, so therefore murder is legal because it's the government who built them, and it's the government who would have sent the order. I just like sped it up a little bit.
Right. And like the absurdity of that is mirrored later, but in a more down to earth way. So it's actually interesting how this episode positions that, where it's like the doctor that Gwen talks to later is basically saying the same thing that he is, but she's just saying it in a more, in just a less absurd way, a way that you might like actually agree with, to some extent. Like you can or one that you might understand the reasoning for, but then like the way it's positioned, where you have this earlier, makes you go like, wait a minute, this is kind of what Colin was saying, and like, yeah, that's completely bonkers.
I mean, to be fair, the doctor Gwen talks to later didn't just kill someone. So you might be a little more inclined to give her the benefit of the doubt, I guess.
I guess. He also says, he doesn't say murder is legal. He says death is legal, which is actually true. Like, and in today's society, in real life, death is legal.
Great.
Murder isn't, but death is.
Reminds me of, I don't remember, I think it was Old England where they used to have a law that like outlawed suicide and the punishment was death. So if you like failed at suicide, you would get sentenced to like hanging. And people were like, how does this make any sense?
So you're just, like, even if you fail the suicide, like you're good to go, right? Like,
in a backup plan. Insurance policy? Yikes. Remember last week when we were like, maybe we should lay off the dark jokes?
No, I mean, Miracle Day is just giving us ammunition, so why not use it? Kind of like how Ralph was being given ammunition by the army and the government, and he used it.
Well, also the like recap at the beginning of this episode confirmed that Ralph didn't come into the room gun drawn when Colin grabbed the gun to kill Vera. Colin actually grabbed it out of Ralph's holster. Just want to exonerate my boy Ralph Coltrane here.
Yeah, because last week we said that he just pulled it out of his hand. He still had that thing ready to go, though. Like, I
mean, yeah. Again, like I said last week, you should have had the holster strap on. But anyway.
Anyway, Esther's day is done. They have the sort of end of the day bell or whatever. I don't know. Do companies actually have this? Is this a real thing that companies do? Like you're in school or something and you hear the bell and you're like, okay, time to go home. Nowhere I've ever worked has ever done anything like this. Then again, I've only had like two types of jobs in my life. More than two, but two types total. And neither of them has been, this sort of office work.
I have also never worked a job that has a closing bell. So...
Yeah. They get paid in cash, though, which is nice. Sketchy, but nice.
Well, Esther's work friend tells her to get paid in cash. She's like, they might try to give you a check, but make sure they give you cash.
Yeah, it's the best way to do it,
She also, she says something about how like the market's going to crash, and also like they keep if they're going to give you a check, they'll just keep delaying it because they'll be like, we don't have checks right now, and everything. Right.
It's actually all throughout this episode where there's these underlying economic concerns, and I'm wondering if those are ever going to, boil over and really come to the forefront. Because later on, again, the doctor that Gwen talks to also talks about how the medical industry is about to collapse, which we already knew, but, just reiterating it.
Yeah, also the stock market's apparently on the brink of collapse as well. Hits a little too close to home, but...
Anyway, Esther figures out or comes up with some excuse to come back, and she lies about having to pick up an extra shift to a person we never see again.
Right. They're only there for Esther to take their job away from them.
That's your role in Miracle Day.
So Rex is trying to make an escape attempt, and he's doing pretty good so far. He's able to get the two guards away from the gate. He's able to pull them away from the gate. He's able to knock them out, steal their uniform, and he's going out the gate now. There's a camera that's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Just going out for a smoke." And the guy's like, "All right, sure." And the gate opens, and there's just this hilarious moment where on the other side of the gate is like a whole platoon of soldiers, and they're like, "Who are you?"
He's like, "Who the hell are you?" Yeah, it's pretty funny.
And he's like,
As that's going on, or slightly, kind of before it and interspersed is like more with Gwen and Reese. And Gwen, as we've been alluding to, confronts this doctor about what they're doing, and she's like, "I'm only following orders, I'm just, I'm not making the rules here." And Gwen really lays it on thick.
Yeah, Gwen is surprisingly like not a prominent force in this episode.
I mean, until she blows everything sky high at the end, literally.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but she's not the main thrust of the episode, so to speak,
No, it's more of a Rex and Esther episode, really. Gwen still has her own predicament to deal with, though, because she learns that the bodies that are categorized as Category 1 are going to be moved into the incinerators at 6 a.m. So they have until then to get Geraint, as she now is pronouncing it, out of there. And there's going to be like a change of shift or something at like 5 a.m., so that's going to be their chance.
So, on that, just on a side note there, how to pronounce Geraint. I Googled it this week while I was doing some of the show notes, and Google brought up both a British and American pronunciation. And the British pronunciation is Geraint, or Geraint. The American pronunciation is Geraint.
Oh my god.
Geraint.
Gerund? Okay.
Geraint and Geraint.
Yeah, well, Gwen is just pronouncing it any way she damn well pleases at any given moment.
Yeah, I mean, yes. You go, Gwen. You own it.
Maybe that's like an in-joke with her and like her family, is that like she just pronounces it however she wants. I don't know. I'm trying to justify this here. Maybe Eve Miles didn't like really know how to pronounce it either, so she's just like, "Oh, just grab bag. You're getting what you're getting."
You get what you get, and you'll like it.
Exactly, and I did like it. I also like this little speech she gives, which she ends with, "Oh, and one more thing, shame on you. Don't call yourself a doctor anymore, because you're not one."
Yeah. I mean, the doctor kind of just looks at her and goes, "All right," and goes back to her work. She's pretty much unfazed.
Really, I felt that like, yeah, maybe she's going to go back to her work, but she's going to have this gnawing sensation, just this remembrance of talking with Gwen, and maybe one day, or maybe, today, maybe sometime soon, she's going to say enough is enough and no.
Tell me, honestly, how likely do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe we'll see where are they now? What if Torchwood ends with sort of, freeze frames with all the characters and text on the screen, and this doctor is one of them. Maybe when things go back to normal, she'll have her medical license revoked.
You know what? Tell me, even better, tell me which of these is more likely, that she'll actually go and think about it, or that we'll get a retrospective where are they now,
Yeah, no, I don't know. She's probably not coming back, just like how Stuart is probably not coming back, or isn't, I guess.
Well, I mean, Ernie Hudson's only credited for one episode of Torchwood on IMDb,
Maybe
so
they used a wax statue of him like they did with Tom Baker. Can you imagine that? I mean, it's funny enough, but there was that sort of thing of like, all right, it was weird and it was the 70s. And they had no budget, so they just kind of did whatever they wanted. But like, can you imagine that now, like in modern Who? Like,
waxwork figure of Peter Capaldi in Twice Upon a Time. The waxwork figure of William Hartnell in Twice Upon a Time. This is Peter Capaldi acting across from a wax figure.
Exactly. What if in series 13 they don't get Sacha Dhawan back and it's just a cardboard cutout?
Imagine Revolution of the Daleks, that scene between the Doctor and Ryan, but but instead of having Jodie Whittaker there, it's Ryan talking with a waxwork figure.
Or no, better yet, it's reverse shot, but it's clearly just like Jodie Whittaker not on set, just in her home, sending this in, pandemic, like recorded on shitty equipment. Her laptop's webcam against a blank white background. Laptop quality audio.
Reminds me of how at the beginning of the pandemic, I think it was the Blacklist released, they had like half recorded an episode before everyone got quarantined and just finished the episode with really, really bad, like 2-week animation. And had all the actors record the voice lines from to very wildly varying effect and results.
Yeah, that's the thing is like when you have actors acting without a director, there's some actors who can act very well without a director and some who just can't, who just are awful actors when there's no director. And it's really funny. That's actually always been something that was really impressive to me, is that there's some actors who are amazing actors, and then when you take the director out, they just can't act.
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
Keanu is a great actor if you give him a director who knows how to tell him what to do.
Yeah, I guess the Wachowskis were not those directors. He's not... I take that back. I don't think he's as bad in The Matrix as people say he is.
I don't even think he's bad in The Matrix. Hot take.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
Anyway, where the hell were we in the episode?
Well, Gwen and Reese come up with this plan to sneak in and rescue Geraint at
Geraint. I'm just going to call him Geraint.
Yeah, it's probably the best idea.
Geraint.
Jack then decides to be creepy as hell again, and he confronts the secretary who we learned at the opening scene was having an affair, or that Stuart was having an affair with.
Right.
She's at a bar, she's waiting for Stuart, and Jack texts her out of the blue, and then shows up behind her. Again, I don't know what's with this, but yeah, Jack is just being a real creepo, as he was last week.
Well,
I guess, okay, maybe Jack is like the Torchwood equivalent of the actor who can't act without the right director. It's like remove the team, and Jack is just like this weirdo who lurks in the shadows and shows up, behind your back or whatever.
Really seems like we're going to get some of that next week. Since in the preview it seemed to looks like we're going to get a flashback.
Yeah, of him coming to America, which is also coming out this week. The sequel, Coming to America.
It also looks like we're going to do the Jack's jilted lover is the reason why the world has gone to hell plotline again, a la Captain James Hart.
Yeah, I'm bracing myself for that. I think it's coming out this week. Let me just make sure here. No, it's already out, actually. March 4th, 2021, Coming to America.
Great.
I've never even seen the first one.
Neither have I, so I'm not really sure. not really sure what else to say about it.
Yeah, it's just been on my mind lately because it's being shilled by like every place that I see ads, which is not many since I use an ad blocker, but most of the time. But yeah, every place that I do see ads online is really shilling Coming to America.
NPR put out a particularly scathing review that was basically like, uh, the costumes are good. And that was it. They were like, the costumes are good. It was a kind of an interesting review because it started with like it started with a quote from about God. It started with a quote by one Oscar winner about another one, and they like interviewed her about this
Oh
other
my
one's
God.
performance, and I don't remember the names. And she was basically like, "Well, her costume was good," or something like that. And they're like, "And that's about the best we can say about Coming to America too. The costumes are good."
All right. I mean, good on you. I don't know who's out there reading movie reviews on NPR, but
I had NPR open, okay, because I was reading about vaccine information.
yeah, giving them their, one of the dozen hits they probably had on that review. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just bitter that our blog gets no views. Check out our blog. We have some good stuff on The Prisoner there. Speaking of The Prisoner, check out Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast for watching The Prisoner 2009.
Yeah, we're back. Inevitable's back. Anyway, so after confronting Janet, Jack basically,
That was her name.
her name's Janet.
Generic secretary named Janet.
Jack reveals to Janet that Stewart asked to have her transferred to Cincinnati. Devastating.
Right. So, as part of her revenge, or as the only aspect so far, I guess, of her revenge, she decides to help Jack confront Stewart or whatever.
Yes.
Which he does. He goes to the restaurant where Stewart is having dinner with his wife and just casually ruins their marriage. Probably, unless she takes him back.
I mean, maybe she knew. Maybe she knew already about her husband stepping out on her.
I mean, it didn't seem like she knew. She seemed like pretty surprised, but also like, I don't know, exasperated or something, or like just really, really. And she obviously is upset because she gets up and leaves. Jack sits down and they have this sort of discussion over what Ficor's role in the miracle has been.
Mm-hmm.
Which is that Jack expects Stewart to know something, but he's really in the dark as everyone else. He said he tried to do his own digging, but the trail, I guess, was diversified and split up, and there was really no singular line of anything he could trace back to anything suspicious, and that this all really started across a wide area back in the 90s. So really hard to, I guess, dig any deeper than that.
Right.
Jack doesn't want to believe it. He's like, no, you have to know something. And he's like, look, man, like, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for Jack to believe him, But I guess getting all this information is useful.
Given what he says next, though, I don't think he's lying, where he says that he did pick up one clue, which was the word blessing.
Yeah.
Which, miracle, blessing, seems to be highly related. Did we ever learn who started calling it the miracle?
No. I think it was just the news, media.
Yeah, if there was like, if we knew who started calling it the miracle, then maybe we would have like a clue as to who started calling it, the blessing, or who like came up with the term the blessing, because maybe they also decided to propagate the term miracle.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like something Oswald Danes would come up with, but no Oswald this week, so can't confirm that.
Yeah, I think this is the first episode this season where Oswald doesn't make an appearance.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
that's
it is. Yeah.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Oh, God, of Oswald Danes.
Yeah, Bill Pullman, Oswald Danes, important aspect of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell if you're like kidding or joking, but he is. I mean, he's one of the main characters outside of the main Torchwood gang.
No Jilly this week either, actually, now that I think about it. Huh.
Yeah. And no Vera either. It's kind of weird. No,
Wow.
I'm kidding. She died.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Remember when we were sitting here last week preparing to record and we're like, maybe we shouldn't make any dark jokes about this? Remember that?
Yeah, remember that?
Anyway, Rex is now, I think Ralph now tells Colin that the guards have caught someone, and that someone is Rex. And Colin, again, just joker that he is basically just goes, la la la, I can't hear you, la 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 la. Until Ralph finally is like, look, man, like, it's for real. So he goes to check on Rex.
Yeah, again, Colin rapidly falling apart. And then Rex is like, oh yeah, I recorded everything. And then Colin's like, you what? You did what?
Yeah, well, so they have this little heart-to-heart, and I guess Rex... I don't know, for some reason I was thinking that Rex somehow knew that Colin was the one who turned on the incinerator, but I guess he doesn't, because he tries to convince Colin and tell him, like, look, man, we could be on the same side in this. I know you've been in charge, but you're you're caught in the middle, just like everyone else is, just like I am.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the middlemen.
Yeah, I thought that too, but then like it becomes pretty obvious he didn't, and then I'm just like, wow, you fool.
Yeah, I guess it was like, when you think about it, it's like, how would he have known, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But then he figures it out when Colin tries to just does just stab him repeatedly with a pen.
Well, he stabs Rex's chest wound.
Yeah, and we get the nice visceral close-up of it, like, digging into the flesh.
And Rex screaming in pain.
Yeah.
So
Esther comes up with some excuse to go check on all this.
Mm-hmm.
And when she does, Colin, idea man and not practical man that he is, just, like, walks up, trying to hide the blood on his hands, the literal blood on his hands.
Rex's blood on his hands.
Esther needs to come up with a quick lie about why she's here, and she tells him that Vera called, which he obviously knows is a lie because he killed Vera. So they start going at it, and this is absolutely brutal. This is like some WWE stuff right now that happens. Esther versus Colin, one-on-one. 1v1 me, bro.
Wow!
And eventually Esther somehow gains the upper hand and starts choking Colin out.
Right. She and he does pass out, and she thinks she's killed him. Rex is like, you didn't. No one can die.
Yeah, Rex has this weird line where he goes like, look, he's not dead. He's just category 1 now. Like, really, really buying into the categorization system in a weird way.
Also turns out he's not even that.
Yeah, he's still alive. Or he's still functioning.
He's playing dead, I guess.
Esther tries to get the key out of his pocket, but when she does that, he grabs her again and they start, fighting again. Until Ralph shows up and shoots Colin.
Right.
Saving the day. He has his
Thank God.
his cool little line like, enough is enough. Like, really, you didn't think about that when Colin was shooting, kneecapping Vera?
But Colin had his gun.
Yeah, still, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, it's a little too late here. Like, people are dead on your watch.
Yeah, you're gonna fight the man with a gun.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to
exactly.
know. Good to know.
I mean, Ralph is not innocent in this, all right? He should have acted otherwise.
Sure. But to place the blame upon him,
Well, maybe when all this is said and done, like, and that's a question too, is like, obviously the miracle is going to end. And you just got to wonder what's going to happen to, like, society. Like, is everyone just going to be pardoned for everything that happened during this period? You know?
Yeah, we'll just forget all that. We'll just forget all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Reese is enacting the plan, he and Gwen, and he is being stopped by someone at like some security check or something, and he blatantly lies his way out of it, but it works.
Right.
Reese,
Yeah.
the hero we didn't know that we needed.
I mean, he also doesn't like stick with the lie. Eventually, when the guy goes off to go on the phone, he just guns it away. He's like, "Goodbye."
Right. Gwen gets her dad out of there with a little help from some woman who she made eye contact with twice. This was a little odd to me, but you know. I don't know. I guess it's just like maybe it's just something. Which again, this is weird, but maybe it's like, you know, the doctors are the ones who you expect to be like, you know, smarter, right? Because they went to medical school. They had all this training or whatever, yet the doctor we see earlier is completely disconnected from what she should actually be doing, which is trying to save lives. Whereas the janitor like actually knows what's up. But again, it's like it's really weird and done in an odd way.
I mean, it might just be the like being desensitized to the whole thing because you've seen so many injuries and disease now, like so much more than you would otherwise.
Yeah, I guess it's
Because
pretty
they're
easy.
shoving them into the camps.
I guess it's pretty easy also to convince yourself that category ones are dead, and like, yeah, probably a lot of them are, but it's just like, as we saw last episode, the categorization process is nothing to write home about. So they're definitely just like killing people who should not be being burned, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, and this is something I was reading about the other day, especially in the context of the global pandemic that we're facing. And now I don't remember the name of the phenomenon, but I'll find it for the show notes. But basically, like how when the number of deaths goes up, our compassion actually decreases because we just get not only desensitized, but as more people die, you just become more and more hope. You just start losing hope. You become more hopeless as the situation, and that was why, like, when only 10,000 people in the U.S. had died from COVID, there was a lot bigger. There was a lot more fury and anger over it than like when we hit 200,000. It was like we should be angry about this, but we're just so tired of the whole thing, and it's like such a big number, it's difficult to comprehend. So maybe there's something like that going on here where she's just seen so much more disease than she's ever seen in her life in a shorter amount of time since they're all shoved into this camp that she's just like so, you know, she's lost hope for everything and she's like basically her spirit is broken. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we saw that with school shootings too, where it's like, yeah, I mean, if you remember Sandy Hook, which is really the one that set off the school shooting trend, epidemic, whatever, is like that one was heavily reported. It was like, oh my God, how could this happen? It was in the news for a while, I remember. And now it's just like there's school shootings every week and like they're not reported. It's just like a thing that happens. And like, yeah, high school kids actually these days, I guess, it's like it's kind of a sort of a joke, I guess, is like the school shooting joke, or like watch out, like watch for the weird kid in class, make sure he doesn't reach into his bag, you know, be ready to get the hell out of there. And I don't know, it's kind of morbid, but well, really, it is morbid. It's very morbid. But yeah, I guess that's just the society we live in now.
Yeah.
I guess that's a benefit of the pandemic is like you can't shoot up a school if you're not going to school. Right?
I mean, I guess. I mean, it's like the statistic that shows like influenza deaths 2019 to 2020 season versus the 2020 to 21 season, and it's like a factor of 100 less.
Are down. Yeah, they're down.
They're down from 100,000 to like 1,000. 100th, I guess, number of cases, not deaths. But anyway.
Right. Anyway, Rex and Esther have this little heart to heart. Esther is obviously extremely distraught over the fact that she just choked some guy out. And Rex doesn't really know what to say, you can tell, but he's just like, look, Esther, like, it's going to be okay. Just giving the most generic support he can possibly muster.
Yep. Yep. I mean, we even see like that whole apathy play out immediately when Esther and Rex get out and they like leak the video online, and Jack's like, finally some outrage will come of this, and Rex is like, you think so? And they like flip over to the I guess C-SPAN, and the president is just like, this is these are hard times, and it's just like what we would do with a plague ship. We would sink it. And I mean, he doesn't say those exact words, but he's like, we're in a crisis, and this is what we have to do. We're not going to apologize, and we're going to keep doing it.
Wow.
I mean, that's what happens in the episode. It's literally what happens. Because they show all the headlines that are like, war crimes and like we're burning people alive, and then the president just says like, yeah, it sucks, but like what else are we gonna do? We've got so many people, we got to get rid of them. Like,
can't commit war crimes when there's not an actual war. Ha! Charge me with that.
Uno reverse card.
Yeah. You've activated my trap card. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you get the idea that like literally nothing is going to happen. Nobody's going to be held accountable for this, just like in real life. Too real.
Too real. Yeah, too real.
I wasn't watching Torchwood for realism.
Again, just Miracle Day getting too close to reality.
Speaking of things that are too close, Reese barely makes it out of the camp. He and Gwen are almost caught, but he smashes through the gate and gets away. Gwen, meanwhile, is headed back to America, but not before she blows up the facility, killing anyone who might have been inside.
Yeah. No, I have a note. Literally, I have a note that's like, and everyone who was inside just died.
Yeah, now, this is supposedly during the, like, again, the change of guard, the shift change period or whatever, right, between 5 and 6, but, like, I'm sure there was either some Category 1s inside or some workers, there had to have been, at least a couple.
Weren't there Category 1s in there? Like, wasn't that where Gwen pulled her dad out of?
I don't know. It's not entirely clear.
She blows up the module, doesn't she?
Yeah, she blows up the modules. I'm pretty sure. It's not entirely clear. I think what happened was that, like, the plan was at 5 a.m. to move the new Category 1s into the now empty module, and that was the chance they were taking to get Geraint out of there. So maybe there wasn't, maybe they were, like, the idea is that there's no one inside, but yeah, I don't know. There had to have been at least a couple people.
I thought there were people in there already, and that they were pulling Geraint out because transfers had been shut down for the night, and tomorrow they were only moving people. Yeah, I guess maybe they were only moving people in the next day, and they wanted to pull Geraint out before they moved everyone in.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was. I mean, even if it was what you would thought, it's like, I guess the idea is like, yeah, these people are going to die anyway. We can't literally get each and every single one of them out. There's just no way. So might as well just put a stop to this. Again, mirroring Doctor Who, where, the doctor always had the idea that he or she wanted to save everyone in every situation and was always given the way to do that in the end. Whereas in Torchwood, that's not the case.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think she killed someone at least.
Yeah, there had to have been at least a couple again.
Um,
But as we find out in the preview, which we're almost at the end of the episode, if we want to explain that, yeah, I mean, she doesn't even care about sacrificing Jack if it means saving her family, basically.
right. Well, maybe we should explain why she is going to sacrifice Jack.
Right.
Which is
just for fun.
She lands back in L.A. and she gets she can't contact Reese, and then she gets called to the white telephone, and there's a message for her that just says lenses. So she goes to the restroom and puts on some lenses. The contact some lenses. Sorry, lenses. The contact lenses. Which she actually wore earlier to communicate with Jack before she blows everything up.
Mm-hmm.
So she puts on the lenses and looks in the mirror, and someone has access to the lens feed and says, like, we've captured your mom and your kid, and if you bring us Jack, well, actually, they don't say what they'll do if she brings them Jack. She just says, "What should I do?" And they say, "Bring us Jack." They actually make no claims as to whether or not her family will be safe if she brings them Jack. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, but on the flip side, they don't even say that they're in harm's way. They just say that they have them.
That's true.
Maybe they're throwing them a party.
Gwen making a lot of assumptions here. How dare she?
Maybe, yeah, that should be a sin, assuming. Maybe whoever's behind the miracle just was, like, really curious and wanted to enact this, like, large-scale experiment. Large-scale social experiment about how people would act under pressure.
Just a prank, bro. It's just a prank. It's just a prank. Yikes.
Well, in the preview, we see that Gwen kidnaps Jack and is about to turn him in to whoever was on the other end of the line. And we also see that this probably originated sometime way back in the past, as that semi-sepia filter indicated.
Yeah, the desaturation filter, let's call it. The desat filter.
And that, like, that Ellis Island esque, or actually Ellis Island thing that Jack was sort of going through, right?
I suspect it actually is Ellis Island.
Yeah.
The one, the only. The one and only Ellis Island.
There's also, like, I don't know if you noticed this, but in the preview, there's, like, a snake. But when the snake is on screen, you hear, like, a cat noise. You hear, like, a but it's a snake. Or it looks odd. I mean, it might be like a sci-fi snake, because it looked a little off.
I don't know. I actually don't remember, quite honestly. Kind of zoned out at this point.
Yeah, guess you'll have to go back and watch it then.
Shoot. Shoot. I was eating breakfast, okay?
No, I mean, I'm kidding, obviously. What I'm not kidding about, though, is these Britishisms that have snuck their way yet again into the story, into the script.
The Amazon X-ray gave me mine for the week.
All right, well, why don't you go ahead and explain that then? Knock out these both of these birds with one stone.
Both of these birds with one stone. I don't know if my Britishism is the same as yours, but the one Amazon points out is that Colin calls the parking lot where he tells Coltrane to drop
Ralph. Yeah.
No, he's talking to Ralph.
Yeah.
To drop Vera's car at a car park, which is a British term. In America, we call them parking lots.
Yeah, that was mine too. Yeah, we didn't even explain his entire plan, which is he's going to put the entire facility on lockdown, have Ralph drive out to a parking lot and drop Vera's car there to give them an alibi.
A terrible plan, by the way, like a terrible plan.
He's more of an ideas man. He's not really a practical situations guy, so... Hey, he said it. His words, not mine.
would have been fine if he had just not shot Vera. You know, he even mentions that like the government was going to tell them to turn on the burners eventually, so there was no reason for him to burn her. Now he had no I mean, like,
I mean, yeah, he wasn't even. I mean, that wasn't even something I thought of until he had the conversation with Rex, which is like he wasn't even ordered to turn on the incinerators yet. He could have actually been the hero that Rex suggested he would be if he had just not like let his ego go to his head and gotten annoyed. Vera was pointing out the actual atrocities that, or not atrocities, like yeah, atrocities, but the actual like flaws in his system. If he had just been like, you know what, you're right, we need to improve this, we need to make this a better place, as good as it can be. If he just had a better attitude, he would have been A-okay. Just goes to show you.
I mean, like, even if he had shot her, like, my point is he could have just locked her into the module. It wasn't like anybody knew she was there except for Ralph, and what was Ralph going to do?
Yeah.
And then he still could have enacted his she disappeared plan without the guilty conscience of having burned her alive.
Yeah, well, he's more of an ideas man and less of a practical situations guy. What was that on the TARDIS wiki, Ianto's page, which was like he was more of a T-boy and not a full-fledged member of the team?
Well, also, he was a former member of the doomed Torchwood team or whatever.
Yeah. Rip Ianto, 1983 to 2009. We hardly knew ya. Ye.
This is going to be the end of this season. Vera was a doomed part-time assistant to the doomed Torchwood team.
Yeah, not even mentioning her status as a doctor, just like a doomed semi-member. No, Dr. Vera Juarez was a surgeon at City General Hospital in the 21st century. Thanks for pointing that out. And an associate of the Torchwood team. She was also Rex Matheson's lover and his personal doctor spy for info gathering. Yep. Yeah, that last part really does kind of, not as much as Ianto's page, but it was really like his personal doctor and spy. I guess it's true, but, you know, she was acting of her own accord. Why make it seem like Rex is like really the brains here?
Yeah, she had her own volition.
Yeah. Yeah, and her own goals and everything. So, wow. Not surprised, though. It's the TARDIS wiki. Somebody edited the page for Campfire 19 hours ago. It's literally one sentence long.
Maybe they added that sentence.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, whatever. You could do an entire podcast just on the TARDIS wiki.
The TARDIS wiki podcast coming soon. But not from us.
Yeah, not from us. Yeah. What is from us, though, and us alone, are these sins.
It's the 7 deadly sins of Gwen. You segued into exactly what I was trying to segue into. Well, great minds think alike. Or maybe because we've been doing this for 7 years, we've just merged into one consciousness.
Yeah.
Well, I have her doing a lot of wrath in this episode. Doing a lot of wrath. What am I saying?
Doing crimes. What's be gay, do crimes? That meme or whatever.
She's doing a lot of crimes, okay? She's doing a lot of wrath. She's dropping wrath on the boys. On the modules, really. Blowing them up. And that's pretty much mostly what I had her doing, and like all actually. Yeah,
I didn't think of, or I didn't see any other sins that she could possibly be committing here. Pride, I guess. She's like, you know what? I wouldn't do this if I were. When she's talking to the doctor, she says like, say no. I would take that stand, and she's right. She does take that stand, but she's very prideful of it. Which maybe she should scale back the pride a little bit. Right. There, Glenn.
She needs to come back down to earth.
Yeah. back to Children of Earth, the good old days, when the miracle wasn't going on, and there was just that minor alien invasion to contend with.
Yeah, just that minor little thing. Just that minor little thing. So, speaking of minor things, how does Jack come out of it this week?
A-okay. Better than ever, actually.
Yeah.
He has slightly more information than he had before, and he got to, like, mess with people, which is clearly his goal. It's clearly what he's out here to do. He seemed to enjoy slipping everyone he ever slipped. What's the memory erasing drug called?
Retcon.
I can't even remember. Retcon. Yeah, he seemed to enjoy the hell out of that. So maybe he is just in here to
mess up some marriages casually.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, surprise. Surprise.
Maybe that's what he'd been doing on his travels to atone.
I like how he
sins.
didn't even explain, like, how Janet's really bad, kidnapped acting.
Right.
Because Jack calls Janet and is like, see, we've got her. And Stuart picks up the phone and listens, and she's like, help me, Stuart. Don't let them hurt me. Basically exactly like that.
He's like, where... He goes, where are you? And she's like, I'm in, like, some sort of room. I forget exactly what she says, but it's, like, really awkward and obviously a blatant lie.
Yep. But, yeah, Jack's probably not going to be really affected this week, but next week maybe, based on how we're going to get a flashback.
Yeah, we're just... painting another swathe on the canvas of Jack's traumatic past. I mean, seems like every new season just adds a bit to, like, the misery that was his life,
Yeah, I mean, yes. I didn't really have anything I wanted to talk about in regards to this episode, actually, before we do Britain's 10 Actors. Kind of just found this episode to be all right. I mean, I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was bad. It was kind of all right. Didn't really propose any new, interesting ideas. Kind of just seems like it was there to get us from the previous episode to where we needed to be for the next one.
Yeah, well, that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is, last week, or maybe it was a week before, I can't remember, we had this discussion about how, Miracle Day is working, for us at least, because it does combine the episodic with sort of this overarching plot, right, where each episode obviously contributes to the larger goal of this, but feels kind of, to some extent, self-contained and has its own conflict. This one is probably the first one that doesn't really feel like that. It really just feels like a continuation of last week.
Right. And part of that is because we need to get Esther and Rex out of the overflow camp in order to be able to do anything else. And they could have just made that they walk out the front door, but in a way I'm glad they didn't, but at the same time that does serve to the detriment, because that you can't make that half the episode and then really only use 20 minutes to set up some new interesting plot point. So they kind of had to drag that out to the whole episode if they were going to do it.
I did like the sort of the tense scenes, right, and some of the humor that came from that, like with Rex, breaking out, stealing the guard's outfit or uniform or whatever it is. Those were, I like that, and then, the obvious tension that comes with Gwen and Reese trying to book it out of there before they're found out. So, yeah, it held up, I think.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad we didn't spend too much time, or any time really, with Oswald Danes this week. Because it did, I made a joke earlier with the absence makes the heart grow fonder thing, but I do think that the Oswald Danes storyline was in a point where it set up something interesting, and to try and develop off that in this episode we just fall flat, because we're already at kind of the apex of that storyline until it reintegrates, I think, more fully with the Torchwood storyline.
Yeah, definitely. The only other thing I wanted to talk about here is yet another Nazi parallel, as if the incinerators and the concentration camps weren't, you know? But, like, yeah, so apparently, so I've heard and read, during Nazi Germany, they would compartmentalize different parts of the process as they were taking people to concentration camps, as they were killing people. Every sort of person who made that happen maybe wasn't given the full picture. Yeah, they might have known what they were doing, although maybe some of them didn't. Obviously not an excuse, but like, yeah, they really like compartmentalized and like, maybe the person bringing people in by the trainload didn't really know what was going on or didn't have the full picture. Maybe they were able to guess, but they weren't ever, told or anything like that, just so that, like, if you were confronted, you didn't really have, you had not an alibi, but like, you didn't really know what was going on. They kept, the Nazis themselves kept their own people in the dark like that. And that's kind of, it's touched on in this episode, right? Where it's like, you have the people who are like, I'm only following orders, like, yeah, we're killing people, but what else were we supposed to do? We're just following orders. And then you have people who are obviously part of that system but don't really know what's going on. Makes you think about the doctors we saw last week who were categorizing people. Do they know? Who knows here? Right? So,
right. I mean, that's part of the, like, whole... The reason why the SS existed was so that the soldiers could be the soldiers and the SS would be the people who did the torturing. I think they go a little further into that in this episode than maybe you're even saying, since, again, going back to the end where Jack's like, oh, we're finally seeing some outrage, things are going to change, they're bringing in the regular military, like the guards are gone, the military is coming in, but that just being like, well, there's just a different compartment in the whole scheme. They're in on the plan. Mm-hmm. They may not know the specifics of this part of the plan, and now they do, but they were always part of it anyway, so bringing in the military... Mm-hmm. Doesn't really change anything. It just changes the faces, but not the actions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point.
So I put this in the show notes for last week's episode, but I actually want to bring it up in the episode just because it's interesting with the whole like comparison to the Nazi regime, the totalitarian regime of the Nazis with that whole thing, and how I specifically forgot until I was doing the show notes that the phrase, quote, great leap forward, unquote, that Oswald Danes uses to describe both the miracle and also like when humans started using tools, etc., was a phrase that was actually like pretty heavily used in propaganda by like the Chinese communist regime in the 20th century, and was like a heavy part of their propaganda. So like for that phrase, a phrase heavily associated in parts of the world with a totalitarian regime to be used in this context also was very interesting to me, realizing that when I was putting some stuff in the show notes and editing the episode.
Yeah, huh?
I don't know if it's saying anything more than that, but...
Oh, we had an email, I think, didn't we?
We have an email and we have Britain's 10 actors to still do.
Oh, right, yeah. We
America's
saw that.
10 actors. Well, because I only looked up Ernie Hudson, so I only looked up one actor this week.
Yeah, that's all I looked up as well.
So Ernie Hudson, who plays Stewart, he was in Ghostbusters, The Crow, Adventure Force 5, Arrow, Spider-Man, The Lethal Weapon TV show, Law & Order, Oz, which we've mentioned on this show before, I believe, Batman the Animated Series, The Incredible Hulk TV show, and just a bunch of other smaller TV roles. But those are the ones that I recognized. But we do have an email. I have an email to read from Steven. Hey guys, with the current coverage of Torchwood Series 4 and the American remake of The Prisoner, I kind of worry that Decade of Vegetables be perhaps getting too American. Then again, I wouldn't complain if you guys end up covering Twin Peaks, in parentheses, Twinevitable when. Anyway, you guys mentioned that Torchwood has turned you into terrible people too, and I'll just say that I'm looking forward to whenever the Sarah Jane Adventures gets covered. It will be refreshing to bring Trust Your Doctor to a more family-friendly, wholesome tone. Maybe there can be wholesome segments this time, like Good Job, Sarah Jane, or Luke's Achievements, or High Five, Clyde. Maybe not those exact names, but stuff like that. After all, Trust Your Doctor can be escapism from the terrible truths of Torchwood. Cheers, Stephen. Well,
I guess time will tell if we ever stop railing into the characters and giving them hell.
yeah, time will tell whenever we get to Sarah Jane Adventures. We have insinuated in the past that we're going to do it after Torchwood. Perhaps now is the time we should explain. Perhaps now is the first apt opportunity we should explain what is actually happening to Trust Your Doctor when we finish Torchwood Miracle Day.
We can explain it now, but
we should at least explain or reiterate that we're going to be doing after Torchwood. We're not going to go straight into Sarah Jane Adventures. That was at one point, perhaps when we started Torchwood, the plan, but we're not doing that. When we finish Torchwood in 4 weeks from now, so 1 month, we'll be doing then another retrospective series where we'll revisit one story from each of the classic Doctors that we think is good or the best or great, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
So just want to reiterate that at least so people know that that's coming. We haven't decided on what serials we're going to watch, just realizing we should probably do that pretty soon. Although I think we've decided it will end with Survival.
Yeah, the best Seventh Doctor story, Survival, yeah. We had a comment here too. I actually didn't see this until now, but it was from Boz on the Escape to LA episode.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that Gwen's father's name is pronounced Garrett. I knew someone with the same name. I assume it's the Welsh. I assume it's the Welsh version of Grant. So a little clarification there. I wish I actually saw that earlier.
Wish you saw that before we mispronounced his name again the whole episode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Garrett. All right, Garrett it is. Until someone else tells us that's wrong.
Although, just going off of what Boz wrote, obviously it's just text, so you don't really know how to pronounce it just from that, right? It could be like Girant or something.
I guess.
Sounds like some sort of monster that like Godzilla would fight.
Well, on that comment, I've got nothing else to say.
No, neither do I.
If you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Trust Your Doctor. Wait a minute, why did I say that? Your thoughts on... my mind is somewhere else. Freudian slip. Your thoughts on Jack's flashback next week. You can find us on YouTube at Decade of Vegetable. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere, actually, you find the podcast at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. Next week we're watching, brace yourself for this, get ready,
Okay.
Immortal Sins. But until then, the end.
Amazing.